Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with my first quarterly update for 2024 with all of the eyeshadow pans that I hit as well as all of the eyeshadows that I finished. So it's going to be quite an exciting update today and quite an exciting video. I love doing these because I love sharing with you the pans that I have hit and eyeshadows that I finished. I definitely have more pans than finished eyeshadow, which is obviously going to be the norm in these kind of videos. But I'm excited again to jump into the progress and everything. So before I jump into that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So I have the list on my phone with uses and with everything on the pans that I hit. And I'm going to start with that and do the eyeshadows finished afterwards. So we're going to start right from the top with the first eyeshadow that I hit pan on this year, which came from my Urban Decay Stone Vibes palette, which was my product level up level 1 palette, and that is also where I hit this pan. So the pan that I hit first this year is the shade Tiger's Eye in this palette, which is the shade right there, and this one took me 5 uses in total, so that is the first shade right there. The second pan that I hit came from my Soft Glam palette, which is my Panda palette this year, and that shade is the shade Sultry from this palette, which unfortunately I can't show you because it was in here, and I was able to pan on this eyeshadow in the project after 15 uses. And a little spoiler there for the eyeshadows that I finished, but unfortunately I can't show you that shade, but I did hit pan on it, like I said. Well, a couple of shades that came from my Panda's eyeshadows, and both of those are singles. And first up is actually a pressed glitter that comes from Colourpop, and it's the shade Indio. It looks like this. I used this one mainly on my nails, but it took me 16 uses in total to pan on it in this project or in that project. So that is the third pan for the year. And the second single that I have comes from Colourpop again, but this is actually the powder shade from the Dream Street palette in the shade Kaleidoscope. And this specific shade took me 13 times to pan on in that project. So we're moving away from the singles for a short while, and we're going back to my Panda palette actually. And the second pan that I hit in here this year is the shade Sienna, which comes from the second row, and it's this shade right here. So this one took me 13 times to hit pan on, and obviously I've continued working on it. The pan is still quite a small pan though, but that is the next pan, which is pan number 5. And then we're moving straight back into the single eyeshadows again, and we have another single. This is from the Paso Roses, and it's the shade Starburst. This was a beautiful eyeshadow to work on, and I also worked on this one in my Panda's eyeshadows. And this one took me 7 uses to hit pan on, but I have actually used it a couple more times after that. But in that project, it took me 7 times to hit that goal. For the 7th pan, we have another kind of single powder shade, but this is actually an individual powdered eyeshadow. And I have this one in my deck of panning with the gold tint pan. This comes from Stila, and it's one of their magnificent metals in the shade Metallic Peach. And as you can see right there, I was able to hit pan on this one, and it took me 5 uses to hit that goal. So you can see that shiny pan in that project. Then moving on, we're going into my level 2 product level up palette, which was my California Coast palette. And the first pan that I hit in this palette is the shade Laguna, which is this matte shade right there. And this one took me 21 uses to hit pan on, and that was the first pan in this palette. And I'm going to bring that out soon again for the second pan, but first up we're going to go back to my Stone Vibes palette, and I hit pan on a second shade in this palette, which is the shade Vibes, which is right there. I didn't work on this one in my product level up though. This one I worked on in my Panda's eyeshadows, and it took me 5 uses to hit pan on, actually same as Tiger's Eye right here. I think it took me less uses in that specific project, but I also had a use on it. Actually no, I think 5 uses from that project. And then I also had some use on it obviously before, plus like the use that I had in Project Level Up. So it obviously took more than that in total, but 5 uses tracked from Project Level Up. And then like I said, we are back in the California Coast palette, and the next pan in here is the shade Half Moon Bay, which looks like this. So this one took me 18 times to hit pan on, and I have used it a couple more times again. I'm actually wearing this one on my eyes today, but I have it topped with a different shade on my like inner part of my lid. So I have used it 2 more times because I wanted to reach that 20 threshold, but it took me 18 times to hit pan on that one. So obviously the shimmer was a little bit quicker than the matte, but I loved working on those 2 shades in my project level up. And we have actually come to my last pan from the quarter, and that one comes from my Love Nose palette. This pan is actually just an organic pan because this is the palette that I'm using for my Big Fat Eyeshadow project this specific week actually. But when I was doing one of the looks for that project, I actually pan on this shade here called Bellini. So I also have that pan, but unfortunately I don't have any tracked usage because it's more of an organic pan. I know I've used this shade before a lot, and also the pans in here are quite shallow, so you know, it was nice to see that pan appear. And I knew I was close, but I didn't know it would just take like one more use, but it did, and I'm really, really happy with that. But again, I don't have any uses for that specific shade. Before I jump in to show you the finished eyeshadows, I just want to go through the average kind of use per pan. So in order to pan, judging from these 11 shades, obviously I'm taking out the Bellini shade because I haven't tracked usage. The total amount of uses that it took me to pan on all of those shades were 118. And splitting that with 10 eyeshadows that I have tracked, that means 11.8 usage on average to pan on these shades, which is pretty good. I think that's pretty on par with for me, because sometimes it goes really fast, especially with like shadow pans or really flaky shimmers, things like that, whereas mattes and specific formulas can take a much longer time. So I think like 11-12 uses is pretty on par for me. Then let's move into the eyeshadows finish, and I actually only have one shade to share with you, which I've kind of already spoiled, and that is for my soft glam palette, and it's the shade Sultry. So I did, like I said, hit pan on this one in the quarter, but I also continue working on it, and I have finished it up completely. This is my Pan That palette, so obviously I'm going to hopefully have a lot more finished shades from this palette moving forward in the year. But, you know, I've only worked for this one for 3 months, so wasn't expecting to have like loads of empties. Same overall in my collection too. But I'm really, really happy that I was able to get one of these out at least. And in terms of uses, it took me 61 times total to finish that specific shade up. It was, you know, it might have had a couple of uses here and there before, but that is the overall tracked uses for this one. And since I only have one finished shade, 61 is also going to be my average for finished shades so far. But that is going to be it for today, you guys. That is all of the pans that I've hit and all of the finished eyeshadows that I have so far in the year. I am definitely slowing down this year when it comes to hitting pan and things like that, just because I have a lot of other projects going. Obviously, I have my Project Level Up, my Pandas eyeshadows, things like that, where I still wanted a lot of pans. But I am doing my Big Fat Eyeshadow project, which is taking a lot of my time and uses. So I reckon I'm going to have a few less pans this year, which I'm completely fine with, same as finished eyeshadows. But hopefully, obviously, I'm going to try to finish up a majority of this palette here, as well as a couple shades here and there potentially. I have a couple of eyeshadows in my Yellow Pretty pan. So, you know, my end goal, I think, was to finish 20 eyeshadows this year. So we'll see how I do with that. So far, I'm only one down, but again, we're only 1/4 in. So again, that is going to be it for today. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye, guys.